So I said, like, if Randall Warnas were a Pokemon, what would it be? And I think its name is Lucario. It actually gave me a reason too, and I was like all like things that I don't deserve a taunt like AI to say about me, but it's funny.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching and listening to the PropsClear podcast. I'm your host, Jillian Angeline. We're talking all about drones and about improving public perception surrounding the unmanned aircraft industry. If you've been liking the content, please follow and subscribe so you can get notified about the latest episodes. These episodes are for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only, so none of this constitutes legal advice. Fasten your seatbelts and let's get started. Today's guest is Randall Warnas. He is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Workhorse. Randall, thank you so much for joining me and taking time to talk to the PropsClear podcast. I know at the end of the year it can get very busy. Wanted to ask you, first of all, why drones? You've been in this industry for almost a decade now, since 2014, and you're still in it. A lot of people would have thrown in the towel. A lot of people would have said, this is a crazy industry and I'm not sticking around. Why are you still here?
Well, I think that 10 years is a long time of tenureship in an exciting industry where it's pretty close knit. It feels like home. It feels like a community that I helped, be a part of and seen a lot of the maturation of the drone industry. So it's hard to leave. I do wonder, there are days that I wonder why I keep going in an industry that is so fraught with regulatory challenges and, technological wars between the United States and China and overseas. So there's definitely things about the drone industry that make it so that you're on the edge of your seat all the time in a good way, and also in a way that just like, what about people that just have regular jobs that don't have to worry about the global political environment and whether a business can succeed or fail based off of FAA or other regulatory bodies and how they view what you're trying to do. But the industry's been good to me. I've got to see a lot of things, do a lot of things, meet a lot of great people, and I'm hoping for, I won't say I'm hoping for another decade, but I definitely hope for another 5 years in it, and then we'll see.
Well, hopefully in a decade, drones will be commonplace as cars are at this point, right?
Correct. Yeah. With that, I always assimilate garbage trucks to drones, where it's like a garbage truck really is a disruptive thing. It rumbles down your street, it stops, it picks up this stuff. There's like people had to learn to accept garbage trucks, but now a garbage truck goes by and you don't even think a thing of it. And I'm hoping that, in the next 5 years, drones will be the same, where, one's just inspecting a roof or going down power lines and doing its thing. And we don't really give it a second thought.
And we love the garbage men, right?
Yeah, I love every sanitary worker that I've ever met. That's true.
Yeah, exactly. And they do great work. They get paid good money and they take care of the nuisances in our area. So God
Yeah,
bless them and
for
everything that
sure.
they do for us. You mentioned a lot of the concerns about drones of foreign concern. That was actually my second question. So you led right into the next question. You worked for Autel for a little while. You've been with DJI for a while. Those are two names that are on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, especially in the regulatory industry, as we focus on the push from a lot of states here in the US to try and shy away from drones that may have been manufactured or parts may have been manufactured by China.
Mm.
Do you think that there is more competition now because of this extra concern, and that's going to help fuel more companies to come out of the woodwork?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we are in an industry of engineers and opportunists. The engineers are the ones that, built companies in their master's and PhD programs, or maybe undergrad in aerospace engineering or whatever, and then they try to productize it. And then there's the opportunists that have venture capital money, and they're trying to get into what they see as a growing industry. What we've seen is that DJI, can sell $2-3 billion worth of drones a year, and if we can shut them out of certain markets, that leaves a vacuum. Unfortunately, their technology is just so good and so inexpensive that it sets the norms that everyone else has to accept. And so I think that regardless, first of all, I want to be clear. I am against any sort of country or a country of origin ban on drone technology. I think that it's the wrong way to approach that. I think that you can do cybersecurity vetting of every technology and any technology and understand what the risks are. And then your organization, no matter where you're located, can determine what risks you feel are acceptable for your application with drones. But I think that when you pull DJI out of the market, let's say in the United States alone, look at how many software developing companies would no longer be able to employ their number of workers or be able to fulfill the number of jobs that are being done with drones today, because there's just not drones out there other than DJI that carry that much weight and make it so that it's market viable for these companies to exist. So I think that the drone industry takes steps back every time that we see a reduction of use of Chinese drones. And me not working for a Chinese drone manufacturer, I still am a believer that what DJI does is spends the amount of money and time to protect their business, and to protect their business, they are exposing things about their cybersecurity that no other company really is. It doesn't matter that the butts of the engineers are in Shenzhen versus Chicago. We shouldn't look at one being more secure just because of where the engineers sit. We should look at the product and take it apart and see how much is actually there to protect that data. And I think that DJI is wrongfully pinned as a villain just because they're a Chinese organization, and I disagree with that approach. The human rights violation stuff that really caused them to be on the entity list, I can't speak to. I think that there's probably some misgivings and some. It's not like DJI promotes the surveillance of the Uyghur people in Western China, but I think that these are things that require more education and less fear mongering that happens in Congress for these rules and regulations to be made.
That's really interesting because so the concern in some ways is that, while people are just going about their business, taking video of the New York City skyline or different skylines in the US or different areas in the US, there may be some surveillance by the Chinese government who can tap into some of these video feeds or something like that. Are you concerned at all about that? Or is that
I
something that
think
you think is beyond
uh,
us?
I think that DJI has shown that that's not what they do. There is data that is saved onto the SD card for the purpose of being able to determine causes of crashes. So there's logs that are saved. That makes sense, and it does have geotagged information because they need to know whether you were flying over a lake or you were flying at 8,000 feet elevation. You can't trust the user to give you the full story, so you have the drone tell you the story. I think that that's all extremely normal and expected. And if any company, stateside or otherwise, was doing the same, there would be no concern. But if you are flying over sensitive areas like a nuclear power plant or in the field of war or whatever, yeah, don't use DJI stuff. That's okay. That's it. Err on the side of caution with those sorts of things. But if you are a police officer looking for an escaped, crackhead or something like that, it doesn't matter. We have Google Maps. You could see what the infrastructure of the United States looks like. You could see what a forest looks like and what a home looks like. You're not getting anything special or proprietary. Do I think DJI cares or is looking at that data? No. Do I think they're selling that data to the Communist Party of China? No. But if you do have those concerns, don't use it. But don't have the federal or state governments take that decision out of the consumer's hands. I think that opens up a whole new avenue of questions like, where's your iPhone made type things, where it's like, yeah, do we really need an iPhone price to go up by triple because we don't want parts assembled and manufactured in China? That seems like it's not to anyone's benefit.
And talking about benefit, there are public safety organizations across the entire state of Florida right now that are grounded their DJI drones that can't fly. I remember talking to someone from one of the county sheriff's office when I was, the commercial UAV in Las Vegas in September. And she
Mm.
said, we have no drones that we can lift off right now. That's a huge issue across the board in Florida. I think there was another concern about it happening in Texas. What is your take on that? It sounds like that you are pretty much against those actions being taken.
Yeah, I think that the all out ban for public money being spent on DJI drones was incorrect. If you wanted to narrow the scope of where they can be used, or at least say certain organizations that have sensitive data should be cautious, that's fine. But there's a report that said $200 million worth of DJI drones were grounded. Now, I don't think it's that high of a number. Just my drone experience and knowing how many drones are sold every year and who's the one selling them, I don't think there's $200 million worth of DJI drones owned by police and fire departments in the state of Florida. But
Mhm.
if that were the case, you just took taxpayers' dollars to improve their communities, the safety of their communities, and you basically flushed it down the toilet. And then you're like, all right, we'll wait a few years to build back up funds to spend your money again on inferior technology. And that doesn't make any sense. The cops and fire departments that I've talked to, and this is pretty much a 100% rate, are like, don't take my DJI stuff away. We don't need to worry about cybersecurity with the data that we have. We're not flying in sensitive areas. Yet it wasn't up to them. It was up to anti-Chinese sentiment of politicians that were ill-informed and paid by lobbyists, or paid not paid by lobbyists, met with lobbyists that are paid by drone organizations. So I just think that it's dirty business. I like the idea of winning a competition because you win, not because you ban the people that are better than you. And that's, I think, the spirit of the United States is just be better, not block out. We're so used to being the best, like in our minds, we're the best at everything. When we lose shot put in the Olympics, we're like, why the heck isn't an American that won that thing? And that's just like how we're trained. In drones, we are inferior to every extent. And it's because our labor is expensive. It's because we move slowly. It's because we don't have access to a supply chain like the Chinese do. And so, why not leverage the best technology to serve our communities and worry about the military stuff and leave that to the domestic players?
So where to the heck do we go from here? With we it kind of already started this ball rolling down the hill.
Yeah, I think
Are you gonna run and stop that ball halfway down the hill?
I've certainly tried to speak up as much as I can, and I think that organizations throughout the country and users are trying to inform different regulatory bodies on the dangers of making these kinds of laws. The state of Florida got it wrong. I don't think that even most in the state of Florida deny that. Arkansas followed up with giving a 4-year wind down period
Mhm.
for the use of DJI technology. And like you said, Texas could be on that road, Oklahoma could be on that road, Michigan could be on that road. And I think that they're learning the lessons of the pain points of what happened in
Mhm.
Florida and trying to learn from those. But instead of shutting down $200 million worth of DJI drones in Florida, you could have spent, I don't know, 500,000 and had one of the best cybersecurity firms in the United States take a DJI drone, take it apart, listen
Yep.
for leaks and things like that. And when that did happen by the Department of Interior, they came back and said, we found no reason to not use DJI drones. But then shortly after, the Department of Homeland Security said, oh, shut down DJI drones because of, we're nervous about it. And I think that, again, it's unfounded. There's not a lot of documentation of why these things are happening. It's all fear based. And I think that we as a society should require more than just fear for a reason to do things like that. Um, so where we go from here, hopefully we're learning lessons as we see the pains others are taking on in the state of Florida and elsewhere. And we domestically have to build better technology at a cheaper price. I just don't think we can expect drones are 4 times the price. Just like if TVs went from what they are now to 4x, you could expect there's going to be a lower fewer TVs in each household at the very least.
Hmm. I didn't think I'd be bringing this up during my podcast, but you remember that balloon
Yeah,
that went across almost the entire US? And a lot of people say that that was, a surveillance balloon.
I'm not doubting that there isn't. a concern for the Department of Homeland Security or for the Department of Defense or Department of Justice in some circumstances. I do not see a use case in the state of Florida for a police officer that's doing accident reconstruction to not use DJI drones. And if they're like, well, you could do accident reconstruction, but you can't do, I don't know, like oversight of a crime scene or oversight for when the president visits or something like that. Like, sure, like pick your battles, but an all out ban does not it doesn't make sense. It's unprecedented. That kind of technological, I don't know, like misdirect for no real cited reasons other than we think that maybe these guys could have access to data.
And the price point is always is a concern. I mean, the price point in terms of a DJI drone versus like a Skyio drone or something, there's a
Hmm,
huge difference. You could buy probably two DJI drones for the price of one Skyio. You could be doing twice as much work with those two DJI drones, is what I've heard from a lot of people in the public safety environment who were concerned when they had to ground their drones.
for sure. I mean, like a Mavic 3 thermal is like $7,000, $6,500, and a Skydio X10 is over $20,000 with subscription required to use different processing software and things like that. And there's not millions of Skydio drones that are flown in the world, so you don't actually know the safety value, the failure rate as much as we know about DJI. And the user experience of flying a DJI drone is second to none. It is the best technology in the world at the cheapest price with the most features. So it just doesn't make sense to, like I said, competition needs to get better by making better drones and looking at affordability. And if you're charging more, it better be luxury. Um,
Mm,
it better be, what I mean by that is comparing it to like cars. It better be like, I'm driving a Mercedes and I can feel it, rather
mhm.
than be like, no, you're actually driving a worse vehicle. You're riding a skateboard, but you're paying three times as much as the car.
But I mean that's where Workhorse Arrow comes in. You're with Workhorse Arrow right now. They're on the
Mm,
front lines of doing a lot of work with groups like Valkyrie for drone delivery. You're working with UPS Flight Forward to try and work on delivery of packages. You're working on the 44807, which is one of the codes to be able to get that special unmanned flight, making sure that there's no risk, and you're testing a lot of that out with under that special code, that US special code. Where are you
mm.
in that testing phase?
Okay, so there's a lot there. Yeah, so Workhorse is primarily a delivery truck manufacturer, electric delivery truck manufacturer, and as like companies like Amazon have switched over to electric with Rivian, we aspire to be an organization or a manufacturer of trucks that take that on. That's what brought us into the drone space, is doing delivery, package delivery. And so
Mhm,
we have two airframes that we've developed, one for strictly for that kind of commercial consumer package delivery, and the other
mhm,
for more like humanitarian aid and search and rescue, things like that. You asked about the where we're at with the 44807 process.
mhm,
This is specifically to allow UPS Flight Forward and others to use our drones without getting type certified. Type certification requires you to basically cement your drone design in stone and say it's not going to change, and then you go through a 3-year process, and then you have 3-year-old technology that's now type certified. We're seeing others kind of feel the pain of that when you get type certified, but it no longer meets all the requirements that the customer has as years have gone on. So
mhm.
44807 allows us to be a little more flexible. It's a
I
much
like that.
quicker process and allows us to get there. So we're putting in the hours as far as flight hours to show safety and reliability of our airframe so that it can be meet the 44807 criteria. And
Mhm,
then we're hoping that UPS Flight Forward continues to use our airframes in their operations and others around the world, so that package delivery becomes more of a recognized thing. Another win for the drone industry to show that we are creating efficiencies. We're leveraging this technology to do what it can do, and
mhm.
not be impeded by all the regulatory environment like BB loss challenges, etc., that really impede the ability for drone technology to expand.
Do you know where this is being tested out in the US?
You the 44807 stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, it's being done by UPS internally. It's being done by us at our facility in Ohio. We're just testing. I mean, basically, it's flights that drop packages, go back, take it, put another package in, drop it in a parking space or somewhere on
Oh,
an
I
open
mean,
field.
UPS. Where is UPS doing this? Because I mean, I've watched a lot of packages get dropped off at front
Mm,
doors over this
yeah,
Christmas time, but I haven't seen a drone drop it.
yeah. So I think for drone delivery, UPS is not necessarily to the point where they're commercializing it in the same way
Hmm.
that like Walmart is with Drone Up. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and in my neighborhood, South Jordan, as well as Harriman. These are two test sites for the package delivery drones for Walmart using Drone Up. So
Hmm.
there is the ability to do that. I don't know all the locations, but basically, I think the criteria they look at is where is it not extremely heavy, highly dense populated, like
Yeah.
suburbs, basically, where they have a primarily young, technologically inclined people that are not going to have shotguns that are going to shoot the drones out of the sky because they don't know what they are. So they have to be a little bit willing to take on the challenges of noise and drones flying over your house and those sorts of things. So I think they strategically pick like 15 to 20. It could be more than that, but 15 to 20 locations around the United States to do these sorts of tests. And I would feel like UPS Flight Forward will take the same approach where they just find their model is going to be more like hub. Hub and spoke, I guess, is where
Hmm.
you have a delivery depot and you basically are flying the drones from there. And so it would be depots that are close to a lot of the neighborhoods or areas where they're delivering the packages so that the drones can do useful things, but it's not always going to be long distances from that depot.
Well, if anyone's out there listening when this gets published and actually sees these in action in your neighborhood, please comment and let me know what you think about the experience. Because here at PropsClear, my goal is to improve public perception. That was why I started this podcast to begin with. And I think
Mm.
it's really important because we have to be talking about this yesterday, not just today. We have to be talking about this before people start to actually see this, before those garbage trucks in the sky start to actually, you know, go about their business. How do you think we're doing with public perception as a drone industry?
I feel like the perception to me, from my standpoint, is not bad. We did go from the word drone in 2014 being like Reaper drones that are dropping bombs on people to drones being a DJI drone or something you could buy at Toys R Us. And now it's kind of a mix or a hybrid of the two. And I think that that's really positive. But I feel like education is where we struggle the most.
Hmm.
A podcast like yours, things that I've done, it's nice to educate people, but we're educating drone people. We're educating the same people over and over and over. And then when the opportunity comes up where we can talk about drones in the broader public eye, CNN, Fox News, whatever, it's always
Hmm.
like, oh, there was a plastic bag that people thought was a drone going around Gatwick Airport, and it's all bad news. It's
Hmm.
not the stuff that we see as people in the industry every day that transforms people's livelihoods. Whether it's a man or woman that works on the electric power lines and they no longer have to go up and look at transistors with their own eyes, but they can fly a drone
Hmm.
up and do that work. It's incredible. Solar inspection that's done every single, done two times, every 2 weeks instead of twice a
Hmm.
year. That keeps up the clean energy being produced. It reduces brownouts and blackouts. It's all really positive things for human beings, but we don't talk about that. The cops and that are flying or search and rescue crews that are finding missing
Yes.
children or silver alerts where there's elderly or people with dementia or why can't I think of the word when you forget things? All when you
Alzheimer's?
Alzheimer's. Yes, thank you very much. There's all these instances of these things happening,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
our documentation as a drone industry is okay about it. DJI doesn't keep great record anymore since Romeo Dersher left, but we know these stories. We've heard these stories within the industry, especially. But does my neighbor know about these stories? No. Probably I could walk around my entire neighborhood canvassing for people to tell me a good news drone story, and I would be hard pressed because they just don't see it. These things are happening on construction sites. They're happening in
Hmm.
solar farms. They're not happening in your neighborhood. So when we do
Hmm.
have drone delivery of packages, or we do have the inspection of power lines, where it's right in front of you and you see it happen all the time, that is when we'll have this public perception challenge, but opportunity to
Hmm.
educate everybody, not just the people that happen to be at the right place at the right time or know a person.
I was just got a certification with Valmont Industries back in the summer, and I
Mm,
learned how to fly the DJI Matrice 210 and use really nice cameras on the DJI to zoom in on all the parts of the transmission lines so that you can
mm-hmm.
see if something's broken, you can see if something's, cracked. And that also helps save forest fires because a lot of the main reason that, fires start in California and other places are because of faulty pieces of these power lines. So I saw firsthand the importance of using drones for that. But what a lot of those workers do is they go out into really remote areas where like they're hanging out with the cows and the snakes to do that kind of
Yeah,
work. So they're not sitting there, in upstate New York or in northern New Jersey or in Georgia or other places in very condensed neighborhoods, in the city of Atlanta or something like that. They're doing a lot of that work in more remote areas. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think as that becomes more prolific, I think it's definitely going to be a big part of the process. I think you're right.
yeah. Drone as a novelty is not the end goal. It's not a fidget spinner, right? It's not like a
Mhm,
fad. Drones are a thing that save time, improve
mhm,
safety, improve results. In package delivery, when we talk about delivering blood, when we talk about delivering lab samples to where someone could get the results of their labs that day rather than waiting through the traditional shipping process and it's multiple days to get there and then to process and all of those things, we have better outcomes for patients like transplants. Why
mhm.
not send transplants from inner city Manhattan to from one hospital to another or however that's done?
Yeah.
If we are saving time and in a sense saving lives using this technology, yes, it needs to be safe, it needs to be reliable, it needs to be put in the hands of people that know how to operate it. All of those things are 100% true and we have the capacity to get there, but we should be seeing much more adoption with the life-saving and life-altering characteristics of drones, and we just haven't because
Mhm,
public perception is part of it. It's the the willingness to accept a new technology that is autonomously driven and
mhm,
has some sort of kinetic impact capabilities if something were to go wrong. But we
mhm,
drive cars 70-80 miles an hour on a highway. That
mhm.
wasn't like day one that happened. That's how we operate now. We have death machines literally going down every road and we accept it. So you know get behind the technology and understand it now. Otherwise, it's just going to leave you behind.
You use the word autonomous, and I gotta ask, are you at all concerned about this autonomous world that everyone talks about? It feels like there's two schools of thought on this. And if anyone listened to that Elon Musk interview with the New York Times, that was part of the line of questioning was about, the autonomy and is he concerned about the autonomous world? Are you at all worried about that, or do you feel like it's gonna do more good than harm?
As a short answer, certainly I believe that it'll do more good than harm. But I also I'm 37 years old. I think about doubling my life, and I'm 74. I'm only
Hmm.
worried about the things I can control. We have let something out of the bag, which is smart people thinking about how to improve the world and the human experience. And what we've come up with is computers, and then computers that not only could do math and you could play a few games, but now computers that you could get answers to everything at a click of a button, a type of on a search engine. And then we've taken that to the next level where the search engine actually knows what you want, what you're trying to
Hmm.
ask, or can change the answer to suit you as a human being. And I think that that's incredible stuff. And if that ends up being, the first step to the last steps of humankind, it's like
Hmm.
it's inevitable. We're not going to be able to stop that. And I don't think that it's worth I think it's worth regulating. I think it's
Hmm.
worth looking at and trying to make it so that it doesn't become dangerous. But like what are we going to do? Deny it? if there's a meteor that's heading towards Earth and we're like, it's gonna kill us all, what are we gonna do?
Mhm.
Deny it? Like this is happening, and I
Mhm.
think that we should all, rather than be like, I don't want it. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
if you want it. You should
Mhm.
find a way to adapt it so that it suits humankind and doesn't cause damage. And I think that with the stuff Boston Dynamics is doing with Spot the Robot Dog,
Mhm.
and other robotics companies that are literally making like robot soldiers, that's scary stuff. But I don't know. I don't know what problems it solves
Mhm.
by having robots like taking people's places in like the field of war and like doing harmful acts. I don't know why that would be the choice of these organizations, but again, like it's happening whether we like it or not. Maybe I just went a little dark and a little incomplete, but I think about why I would complain about it, and I just can't come up with an answer because if it impacts me by the nature of like it ends my life or like
Mhm.
ruins my family, that sucks. But I don't think it's the technology's fault. I think it's ultimately people's fault for making those decisions.
In some ways, people are inherently good, though, right?
Yeah. If we're going like completely philosophical, I think yes, people are inherently good,
And they're
and
gonna
people
find
have.
good, happy ways. I'm gonna try and spin this and be at least like have it on a positive note.
Yeah, no, AI is incredible. I did not use like Chat GPT until like a month ago, and it blew my mind. And I was like,
Mhm.
I still don't. I'm still not trying to like dive in to learn
Mhm.
everything you can about it. I think that
Yep,
there's still something nice about writing my own stuff and knowing that I put in the work and
that's the way I
whatever.
feel. Yeah.
So like I resist it to doing like creative things because I like doing creative things, but it is certainly a time saver. I made this Christmas game for
Mhm.
my a family party, and I was trying to think of like how I could not use something that's been done a million times. So I was asking ChatGPT, give me a clue about the movie Home Alone that I could use for a game, and it would write this long thing. I'd be like, make it shorter and harder, and I was doing that with like 100 movies, and it's like guess the movie based off of this clue, and like it could have taken me a million years to do that, but
Wow.
ChatGPT did it for me in like 30 minutes, and I had this game that was completely unique, and no one could really like cheat on it, and I felt good about that. So it's like, yeah, I'll take shortcuts. I'll ask ChatGPT what Pokemon I would be if I were a Pokemon. Like I do that sort of thing, and I get excitement out of it. But what I'm not trying to do is be like, write my response to this email because that's just not who I am.
Yeah, that's actually the level that I'm at right now. I've played with
Yeah,
ChatGPT, but and I really would love to play with the visual one where they're
yeah,
like, draw me something that because I have some friends
so
that started
cool
doing that and it's wild to see what it comes up with. So that's
for
something
sure.
that I do want to start playing with. But now I have to ask you what Pokemon you would be before I ask you my next question.
So I actually still have it up on my screen because this was an actual question. And like so I've been in the drone industry long enough that I'm chat GPTable, which is like kind of an honor in a way. But like if you write like write 100 words about Randall Warnas, it's like really glowing stuff about me and makes me
Oh
feel
wow.
really good. Uh so I said like if Randall Warnas were a Pokemon, what would it be? And I think its name is Lucario. It actually
Uh-huh.
gave me a reason too, and I was like all like things that I don't deserve a taunt like AI to say about me, but it's funny. It's a funny thing, and I think that yeah, I actually just found it. Um, anyway,
Lucario. I don't think I know that
Lucario.
Pokemon, but now I have to look him up.
Yeah, he's a canine or jackal-like creature with some humanoid characteristics, but it's like
Wow.
yeah,
That's a nice
I'm reading that
option.
correctly. But yeah, no, it said the reasons, and it was like like honor and stuff like that. And I think like me being in the drone industry and the way that ChatGPT talks about me is like I've evangelized for drone technology for so long,
Mhm.
and like been a part of this education push for drone technology, and so it sees all those as like really good characteristics. It doesn't know about all the like the crappy things that make me who I am. So I appreciate that. part of AI is it's only the stuff that's on the internet and not the things that are in my household. And that's a joke,
You're
obviously.
so humble.
Wait, are
Uh,
you? I can't tell
no,
if you're being for real.
no. I meant you're being. No, I was being completely serious.
Okay, because I'm like, I don't. Hopefully, I'm not saying anything stupid.
No, no. I was actually going to call you a drone evangelist in my introduction to you, but I didn't know if
Yeah.
that was something because I feel like everywhere I read about you, that word is used right synonymous with you. Almost every single like article, no matter what year it's written, use that word. I don't know if that's something that you self proclaimed early on, or if that's just
Mm,
something that everyone calls. But
yeah, I haven't tried to like brand myself in that way. I think what I've done is I've over the years been in really privileged places throughout the drone industry, and I've tried to be someone that is accessible and
mhm,
doesn't take it for granted and has tried to I don't know, like build a network in the right way
mhm,
of people that I trust and hopefully they trust me and do some matchmaking and help people find new jobs and find new partners in the drone space. But
mhm,
ultimately, using that platform, I've just tried to tell people that there's a lot of good that happens within the drone industry. There's a lot of people that are inherently good that are working on technology that they hope is also inherently good, and that it gets a bad rap for the wrong reasons. And maybe people don't realize all the good it could do for their workplace or what they're trying to accomplish. A construction company that isn't using drones right now, or a solar
mhm.
asset owner that isn't using drones, like they're missing something. They're
Yeah.
uninformed because there's no reason to not use drones. So it's really that evangelizing part where it's like if I have an opportunity to speak, whether on your podcast, at a trade
Mhm,
show, at an event, I do two events a year for the Frame Builders Association, and I don't know anything about frame building, but I'm like, look, this
mhm,
is the stuff you need to know about drones. When you hear other people are using drones, this is how they're using it in construction,
mhm,
and that is evangelism. It's not selling my product. It's not selling my company.
mhm.
It's using what I've seen and retelling those stories so that others could maybe get the insight of why this technology is so important.
You had said that Workhorse Arrow is always looking for extra use cases or more use cases, more ways to showcase what it's capable of. Do you have
Mm.
a dream use case that you haven't jumped into, or a space that you haven't jumped into that you're like, oh, if only I can find a company that would satisfy this, I think I could really show what drones can do.
I think for us having delivery drones, I think the idea of island to island transport, like in
Mhm,
Indonesia, Malaysia, areas where there's water separating you. Not everyone has access to a boat. Takes a long
mhm,
time. Sometimes it's dangerous. If you could transport food items, or you could transport medical goods or prescriptions or something like that, like you are going to improve the livelihoods of the people in those areas, just with like with technology that already exists, no modification necessary. It's getting the approval to fly from one island to another, and maybe one has a general store and the other doesn't. Well, now you've shortened that. You've made someone's life more convenient,
mhm.
um, and potential outcomes. I mean, the pharmaceuticals and stuff like that, definitely it goes to a deeper health related thing. But I think
Absolutely.
that we're globalizing rapidly. I lived in China in 2010, and then revisited several times.
Mhm,
Every year from 2014 to 2020, let's say,
mhm,
before COVID, I guess, so 2019.
mhm,
And China's changed a ton, and they understand, the general average Chinese person understands the West, and the West understands China a bit more, maybe a little more resistant to dive deep into Chinese culture to understand a lot of it. But
mhm.
um, I believe that now that you have YouTube and you have Instagram and things like that, people in sub-Saharan Africa are seeing how we live, and they're wondering, how can I live that way?
Mhm.
How crazy would it be to have fresh water, let alone like the delivery of my Amazon order, within an hour. And I think that drones are going to be an enabler of taking technology and making it so that we're not hoarding all the comforts of life, but it's more available to the broader world. And last thing I'll say on that is Zipline, who I guess would be a competitor of Workhorse,
Mhm.
um, has pioneered so much of that good with what they're doing in Africa with the shuttling of medical supplies. And
They just had their first
it
BV lost flight too here in the US. Big
right,
deal. Huge deal.
they, they're doing such important things, and I don't care what company it is. I care that people are not like, I have to get in a tuk-tuk and ride for 4 hours on bumpy
Mhm.
roads to, like, get a thing I need. That's an elderly person or whatever. I feel like we can do better as humans with technology that exists, and that's, bettering the human condition is what every drone manufacturer should be setting out to do. And
Mhm.
I have been privileged to work for a number of drone manufacturers, including my current company, which I know that that's the objective, is to make the human condition better by reducing emissions and making it so that you can get the things you're trying to get sooner. And when it comes to medical supplies, obviously improving outcomes.
I've talked to Bella Wings, I've talked to Valkyrie all about the inter-island delivery. I lived on the
Mhm.
island of Saipan for 3 years. If any listeners have been listening to my podcast, they know that, or they've been following my career. It's in the Northern Mariana Islands, which is basically a US Commonwealth like Puerto Rico. And let me tell you, drone delivery from one island to another would drastically improve situations. From the island of Saipan to the island of Tinian, it's a 7-minute flight. I think that's the shortest, you know, eh, flight within the US.
Right.
7 minutes, but it's over, a very deep stretch of water. I've covered plane crashes. I've covered concerns about that, planes going into the forests and the jungles in that area. To be able to have cargo get moved from one area to another area with something as simply as a drone on battery power would make such a world of difference for so many people. And I mean, like we've seen that with Zipline, but across oceans is just, it excites me so much to think about that. I've watched
For sure.
Operation Christmas drop with the US Air Force. Some of these islanders in these remote atolls in the Pacific wait a full year for one box of supplies to get dropped from a C-130 that's been in use since, I don't know, decades. That
Hmm.
they're constantly, maintenance is working on it so hard to make sure that this plane can fly every single time for every single flight so that it's in tip top shape to do things like Operation Christmas Drop or go on missions. But these islanders only get one box an entire year that they look forward to. If we can make that, once a month instead
Yeah.
with drones,
Correct.
that would be
Yep.
a huge huge progress, I think. And I think that that's where, you know, you can get to the positive aspect of drones. And I think it would really improve public perception if, especially in places, you talk about people being able to see things on their phones. I think there's some statistic that more people have phones than they have access to like public or toilets, their own personal
I
toilets
believe
in
that.
this
Yeah.
entire world. And so people are constantly seeing these things on their screens. So I think that there's such a great market for this. So I'm excited for Workhorse being able to see what you can do in Indonesia or whatever islands you pick.
Hmm.
I think you had mentioned Maldives at one point in another discussion. Being able to see what Workhorse can do, between the Horsefly and the Falcon and whatever else may be coming down the pipeline. Because I feel like, I'm sure, are you also working on developing anything beyond the Horsefly and the Falcon at this point?
I would say that, like any drone company or any technology company, you're always innovating and you're always trying to make it so that you're staying relevant. I believe that the two airframes we have now serve
Mhm.
our use cases with how they are and how they stand. So we're really focused on just moving, more of those out and getting more feedback, and also, more published information about the successes and the use cases that we're taking on. So that's kind of, I mean, always developing, but I think for the near term, those are the airframes that we're going to be working with.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing where Workhorse Arrow goes and where you go as well.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks for having me on, and happy holidays to you, all your listeners, and we'll do it again sometime in the future.
I would love that. Thank you so much, Randall. If you have ideas for future episodes, I'd love to hear them. Email me, angelswings.jillian@gmail.com. That's ANGELSWINGS.JILLIAN@gmail.com. I'll see you next year.